Okay, so in today's video, I want to talk about how my finances have changed over the past 3 years. And I want to talk through some of the key lessons that I've learned. And hopefully this might give you some motivation when it comes to your own finances and how I've actually been able to transform it over the past 3 years. So I've got my phone and some notes and some lessons to talk through it. So let's get started. Now, I'm filming this currently in 2022. So 3 years ago was 2019, and during this time I was actually in the middle of paying off my debt. So if you are new to my channel and you didn't know, I never used to be that great with money. I actually used to live paycheck to paycheck, and I was very much an overspender as well, to the point where if something happened to my car, for example, I literally would have no money to fix my car, and so I would end up having to either ask my parents to borrow money. And there was even a time where I asked my partner at the time, he's my husband now, definitely a real keeper after that, but I actually had to ask him for money to fix my car because I had basically maxed out my overdraft and I literally had nothing in my current account because I was living paycheck to paycheck. So that's really where I started, and it's so funny because I think people think that I've always been amazing at handling my finances, and that's definitely not the case. I have so many videos talking about my journey, like how I got into debt and how I actually ended up paying it off. So make sure you do check that out if you haven't already. I will link it up here for you and in the description below. But just know that I've not always been amazing at money. And so that's really where I started. And in 2019, 3 years ago, I think it was a year before, I had decided that now was the time to focus on my finances. And for me personally, there are a couple of things that really got me to now start taking control. Number one was I definitely felt like God was talking to me. It was at a point where, you know, after work, I had nothing else to do. I was living in a shared accommodation, so I was living with other professionals. Although I was based in London, where I actually worked was outside London. So essentially I was living where I worked, and it meant that I didn't really have friends around the area, so I didn't have much to do, and decided that, do you know what, I'm actually going to start learning about how people actually build wealth, because I'd seen at work where so many people who were earning 6 figures, like all of these senior leaders that were earning so much money, I just felt like the life that they had just wasn't the life that I wanted. Like, I would see so many senior leaders working hours and hours and hours each day and each week, meaning that they didn't really have time to spend with their family because they were so busy at work. And I just realized that I did not want my life to be like that. And so I just said to myself, you know, there has to be another way. And so that's when I now fell into the concept of things like financial independence and how people genuinely build wealth. And it was funny because at the time that I was looking at all of that stuff, my pastor at my church had also been talking about finances as well, and actually being a steward of the money that God has given you. So for me, I kind of felt like, okay, God seems to be telling me something and I should probably listen to him. And so at that point is when I decided, okay, I'm going to start taking control of my finances, and one of the things that I need to do is pay off my debt. So in 2019, that was at the point where I had already started to overpay on my debt. So that's a bit of background if you didn't know about my story. But now I just want to talk about the key lessons that I feel like I've learned over the past 3 years. And if you're liking this video so far, then feel free to give me a thumbs up, as it really does help to support the channel. Plus, I'm sure you already know it's free. Okay, so the first key lesson that I've learned over the past few years is to hone in on your vision. So particularly from my perspective as a person of faith, I was really trying to understand, you know, what was God's plan for me? And I felt like it had something to do with finances and just being a really good steward of my finances and using that to be able to now help others and to give back to others. And part of that for me felt that if I now started to work towards things like financial independence, then it would give me not only the money, but also the time freedom to also give back to my family, to my community, to my church, and things like that. And so I realized that part of the vision and maybe the goal that I had would be to become financially independent. So it wasn't just to like have financial independence and go and lay on the beach somewhere in Spain. It was really to think about what financial independence would mean for me. And Personally, again, seeing other people at my workplace not being able to spend some time with their family, I felt like that was something that I really didn't want to do. Like, I wanted to be there for my future children, for my family. I wanted to be able to spend some time with them, have time to also give back to my church and things like that. And so having that vision really helped me over the past 3 years, because there were times where I definitely made so many mistakes, especially when it came to learning how to save and trying to overpay on my debt. I made so many mistakes, but the reason why I kept going was because of that vision. And the reason why I've still continued to focus on my finances and continue to learn how to control my money and grow my money is because of that vision of being able to be financially independent, not only for myself, but for others as well. Now, the next key lesson I have is to be consistent. And I think that this is something we all know we should do, but I think a lot of us just don't really do it. And it is hard, I'm not going to lie, especially if you haven't been used to really thinking about your money and learning about money management, or being able to save, or being able to pay off debt and all of that stuff, or even learning how to budget. It can be difficult when you first do it, and it can take a while. I remember when I did my first ever budget, it took so long to do it, and I just felt like, is this how budgeting is supposed to feel? Like, this just feels long. Like, I don't think I want to be doing this every single month. But the reason why it felt long, and the reason why it just felt so tiring, was because it was the first time that I was doing it. Once I actually ended up doing it the second time, the third time, the fourth time, it became so much more quicker, because I was then mastering how to budget. And now I'm at the point where it literally will take me less than 5 minutes to budget, because I'm so used to budgeting. And it's literally like riding a bike. When you eventually try to learn how to ride a bike, and I'm talking from experience because I only started learning how to ride the bike during the pandemic in 2020, but when you start learning, you almost want to give up because you just feel like nothing is working, which was me. But once you now started to get used to it and you really start pedaling, you find that it's a lot easier. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The same thing with budgeting and saving money. With me, budgeting was very difficult at first, and especially because I had no one to really help me with it, and I didn't really understand if I was doing something wrong or if I was doing something right. But the more I did it and the more I learned from my mistakes, the better it became. And now I can't envision a life without budgeting. Like, I absolutely love the process. Sometimes I will even choose a day to do it earlier than I'm supposed to do it, because I just want to see the budget. Like, I'm just excited to see it. So really take the time to be consistent. Even if you do make mistakes, that's okay. Learn from those mistakes and then keep going. But make sure you are consistent, because it's the consistency that will help you yield those results. And linked to that, I will say that my next key lesson is to never give up. And I will say that it took me about 6 months just to save my first £1,000 or dollars. And that was because I made so many different mistakes. Like, my first goal, I think, was to try and save about 500, and even that took me a while. And because I was new to the whole money management concept, what would happen is that expenses was the rise. So for example, there was a time where I had to go to my graduation, and I hadn't actually planned out for my graduation. So because I had to pay for a ticket, that meant that I would have to dip into my savings and essentially have to start again. And so of course, I kind of felt discouraged, because every time I felt like I was saving money, it felt like something else would come up. And so I would have to dip into those savings, and I would almost be starting from scratch every single time. But the one thing I realized is the fact that I didn't give up. And because I didn't give up, I was then able to again learn from my mistakes. And so that's when I realized that things like sinking funds can be helpful, because if I was then able to plan for some of those expenses in advance, it meant that I wouldn't have to now dip into my savings. So for example, let's say that I needed to plan for like car maintenance, so like paying for insurance or MOT or road coverage or anything like that. Because I had set up a sinking fund, so I was already saving up for that separately, it meant that whenever I would have to pay for stuff for my car, I already had the money, and so I didn't have to keep dipping into my savings, which meant that I could eventually start saving more, and that then gave me the confidence to now start working on other things around my personal finances, like paying off my debt, for example. But the reason why I was able to do that, literally, it was just because I didn't give up. So if you are at the point where you feel like you're kind of giving up with your finances, especially because times are a bit more tough now at the moment, I would say please don't do it. Learn from your mistakes and then just work on them, and just ask yourself, well, how can I do better? What do I need to focus on, and what do I need to work on? And I'm telling you, if you don't give up, your future self will be so thankful for it. Now, another key lesson I have over the past 3 years is to not be afraid to take risks. And for me, I think this has been really helpful when it comes to investing my money. So when I was able to pay off my debt, I ended up having money to now save up for my emergency fund. I needed to also save for things like my wedding. But then after that, my focus was going to be on investing. And that was mainly because in order for me to reach financial independence, I needed to think about investing my money. And for me personally, I chose to start investing in the stock market. I do have an interest of investing in real estate, but I wanted to start investing in the stock market first. And so when I'm talking about not being afraid to take risks, I think especially as women, I've definitely mentioned this before, but I think for some of us, taking risks is something that is very scary, and because it's very new to us, it just kind of feels like very uncomfortable. And I would definitely say, like, I'm not the biggest risk taker at all. My husband does tend to take a lot more risk than I do, but I will say the fact that I decided to take the leap and start learning about investing definitely has helped me on my journey. And so for me, the more I understood it, the more I was happy to take the risk to start investing my money. And I will definitely say that it was very scary at first when I started investing. I started investing, I think, about 2020, and I have videos on my YouTube channel when I actually first started on the journey. But taking the leap and deciding to take the risk anyway, even though I was scared, helped me, because once I actually started the process, I gained so much more confidence. And because I had already understood how to invest, I already understood, you know, how cycles work, I already understood why people lose money, why people make money, because I'd already taken the time to have that education, it meant that I was so much more confident to now take the risk to start investing my money. And then when I started, it just felt so much easier. But I think that actually taking the leap and deciding to do something that's outside my comfort zone has really helped me, and it's encouraged me to be able to take more risks with other things when it comes to money as well, like making more money and things like that. So definitely one of the key lessons I would say is, even if it may feel scary to you, if you educate yourself around topics like investing, don't be afraid to now take the leap and actually take that risk, because again, all you're going to do is be able to learn from that experience. And even if you do make mistakes, particularly if you are of a younger generation, you have time to make up for those mistakes as well. And so if you're interested in terms of what my finances are like now, before I actually ended up getting married, I ended up having about 10k worth of savings and investments after I had paid off about 16k of my debt, essentially. And if you didn't know, my debt was my maxed out overdraft, and it was also a car loan as well. So to go from minus 16k to about 10k in savings and investments, I think was a huge leap for me. And that was before I got married. And then obviously when we got married, we then combined our finances, and we've literally just been saving and investing since then. So for me personally, just the past 3 years, I've definitely worked hard to be at that position. I didn't just sit down and kind of give up with my finances and say, you know what, I'm in debt, oh well. I decided that actually I was going to take action and I was going to do something about it. So I'm very thankful that I made the decision to do that, because now I'm at the point where I am financially secure. Now, if you ever want further support when it comes to getting better with your finances, like if you have been trying to save money and it hasn't worked, or if you would love to start investing but everything seems overwhelming, then definitely check out my one-on-one coaching, because what I'm able to do is help you with your own finances so that we can understand what you need to improve on, and how you can actually get to the next step of actually saving that money or investing that money so you can work towards things like financial independence. So make sure you do check that out if you haven't already. You can book a free call just to find out more and ask any questions. So I'll link more information up here for you and in the description below. And if you take anything else from this video, just remember that I have not always been like this when it comes to money. So if you're at the point where maybe you don't feel like you're very good with handling your finances, just know that you can change, because I'm someone who's lived paycheck to paycheck who now can save money very easily, and it's simply because of the key lessons that I spoke about in this video. So I really hope this resonated with you. So if you did like this video, then please do give me a thumbs up if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments, what other key lessons have you learnt when it comes to your own finances? I do post every Tuesday, so if you would like to know more, then of course you can subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next week.